My marriage became a cruel game where I was only her first option, and discovering that brutal truth forced me to stop living as a backup plan forever. She looked in the bathroom mirror without even looking at me. Still, as if I should be grateful for that qualifier. We had been arguing about priorities again. I had asked her to skip tonight's girls' night because my brother was visiting from out of state and I thought it would be nice to have dinner together as a family. Her response was a laugh that could freeze hell over, followed by that devastating statement that just redefined our entire marriage in 4 words. I stood there watching her get ready. This woman I had been married to for 6 years, and suddenly I felt like I was looking at a stranger. The red dress she was putting on was not one I recognized. The perfume she sprayed was different from what she usually wore around me. Even her makeup seemed more intentional tonight. "First option," I repeated, letting the words hang in the air. "That is interesting phrasing." She finally turned to look at me, irritation flashing in her eyes. "Do not start with your jealous husband routine tonight. I am going out with the girls, not running away to Vegas." I did not say anything about being jealous. I'm just curious about this ranking system you apparently have for the people in your life. She rolled her eyes and grabbed her purse from the dresser. "You know what I meant. Do not twist my words." But I did not know what she meant. That was the problem. In her mind, I was still her first choice, implying that she had been weighing other options. The fact that she felt the need to use the word still meant those options were very much active and being considered. "So, what happens when I stop being your first option?" I asked, my voice calm but direct. "Do I get a notification, or do I just figure it out when you do not come home one night?" She paused, her hand on the bedroom door handle. For a moment, I thought she might actually engage with the seriousness of what she had just said. Instead, she gave me that condescending smile I had been seeing more often lately. "You are being dramatic. I am going to meet the girls at that new wine bar downtown. I will be back by midnight." "The girls," I said, watching her face carefully. "Would those be the same girls who have been divorced twice and spend their weekends on dating apps?" Her jaw tightened. "My friends' relationship statuses have nothing to do with me, right? Because spending every Friday night with women who treat marriage like a subscription service they can cancel any time could not possibly influence your perspective on commitment." She opened the door but turned back one more time. "You used to be fun. Used to trust me. Now you sound like my father." And with that parting shot, she was gone. I heard her heels clicking down the hallway, the jingle of her keys, and then the sound of the front door closing behind her. The house fell silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic outside. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the empty doorway. 6 years of marriage, and I had just been demoted to first option status. Not the love of her life, not her partner, not even her priority, just her current best choice among apparently several alternatives. The worst part was not even the words themselves. It was how easily they had come out of her mouth, like she had been thinking them for a while. This was not a slip of the tongue or something said in anger. This was her honest assessment of where I stood in her life. I walked to the bathroom and looked at myself in the same mirror where she had been applying her makeup minutes earlier. When had I become someone who could be casually dismissed? When had I started accepting being treated like a backup plan in my own marriage? My phone buzzed with a text from my brother asking what time we were meeting for dinner. I stared at the message, realizing I was about to tell him that his sister-in-law's girls' night took priority over family time again. But as I started typing a response, a different feeling began building in my chest. Not the familiar resignation I had been carrying around lately, but something sharper, something that felt suspiciously like self-respect awakening from a long sleep. I deleted the apologetic text I was about to send my brother and wrote something else instead. "Change of plans. Let us make it a guy's night. I've got some thinking to do." If I was just her first option, and maybe it was time she learned what it felt like to be mine. And right now, my first option was figuring out exactly what game she thought she was playing and whether I wanted to keep participating in it. The night was young, and I had a feeling it was about to get very interesting. My brother and I ended up at Buffalo Wild Wings, which seemed fitting since my marriage apparently had all the substance of bar food. Over wings and beer, I found myself doing something I had not done in years, talking honestly about my relationship. "She said you are her first option?" he asked, nearly choking on his drink. "Dude, that is like saying you are her favorite backup plan." Yeah, well, apparently that is where I rank these days. But even as we talked, part of my mind was working on something else. Call it curiosity or call it self-preservation, but I needed to understand what was really happening during these girls' nights. They had become a weekly ritual over the past few months, always with the same vague explanation about needing space to decompress. After dropping my brother back at his hotel, I decided to do some basic reconnaissance. Not because I was paranoid, but because when someone tells you you are their first option, it implies they are actively evaluating other options. The new wine bar she mentioned was easy enough to find, Vintage and Vine downtown on 5th Street. I drove by around 10:30, just curious. Her car was parked outside along with 2 others I recognized from her friend group, but there were also several cars I did not recognize, and through the large front windows, I could see it was not exactly the quiet girls' night she described. The place was packed. A mixed crowd, definitely not just a few wives sitting around complaining about their husbands over Chardonnay. I did not go in. That was not my style, and frankly, I did not need to see whatever was happening inside. But I did notice something interesting. She told me she would be home by midnight. At 11:45, I was sitting in my car watching her laugh and flirt with some guy in an expensive suit while her girlfriends cheered her on from their high-top table. I drove home and did something I probably should have done months ago. I opened her laptop. Now, before anyone gets their privacy advocacy speech ready, let me be clear. She uses my Netflix account, my Amazon Prime, my Spotify, and half her bills come out of my checking account. If she wanted privacy, she could start by paying for her own subscriptions. Her Instagram told an interesting story. Photos from previous girls' nights showed a pattern I had somehow missed. Same group of women, but always with different guys in the background. Always at bars or clubs that definitely were not advertising themselves as places for married women to have innocent conversations about life. But the real eye-opener was her text messages with her friend who was going through her second divorce. Screenshots of conversations dating back weeks, all revolving around how marriage is just a piece of paper and how you do not know what you are missing until you get back out there. One message thread from last weekend made my blood pressure spike. He actually asked me to skip tonight to have dinner with his boring brother. Like seriously, I am 28, not 88. I did not sign up to be a housewife, another gym. I love him, but sometimes I wonder if I settled too young. There are so many successful guys at these places who actually know how to have fun. And then the kicker, sent just 3 hours ago, tonight feels different. I am actually excited to see if he shows up. Wish me luck. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark living room. The pieces were falling into place with uncomfortable clarity. This was not about needing space or girl time. This was about her testing the waters while keeping me as her safety net. The front door opened at 1:23 in the morning. She tried to be quiet, but her heels on the hardwood floor announced her arrival. I heard her pause in the entryway, probably surprised to see the living room light on. "You're still awake," she said, appearing in the doorway. Her makeup was smudged, her hair slightly disheveled, and she had that guilty look people get when they are caught doing something they know they should not. "Could not sleep," I said, my voice neutral. "How was your girls' night?" "Fine, good. We just talked and had a few drinks." She was avoiding eye contact, which was interesting. At Vintage and Vine, she froze. "How did you know where we went?" "You told me, remember the new wine bar downtown." I had not told her I had driven by, but her reaction told me everything I needed to know about her comfort level with her story. "Right, yeah, it was nice." Quiet, I repeated. "That is surprising. Looked pretty busy when I drove past earlier." The color drained from her face. "You drove past? Why would you do that?" "I was dropping my brother off at his hotel. It is on the way." I stood up and walked closer to her. "But I am curious about something. You said you would be home by midnight. It is almost 1:30. We lost track of time. You know how it is when you are having fun." "Fun," I said, letting the word hang between us. "With the girls?" "Yes, with the girls." But her voice had that defensive edge that guilty people get when they are sticking to a story they know will not hold up. I nodded slowly. "Well, I am glad you had fun. I had an interesting evening myself, did some reading, caught up on some things I had been meaning to look into." She was watching me carefully now, probably trying to figure out how much I knew. The smart play would have been to press her right then, but I had learned something important tonight. She was lying to me, but she was also sloppy about it, which meant if I gave her enough rope, she would probably hang herself without my help. "I am going to bed," she announced, clearly wanting to escape this conversation. "Good idea. You look tired." I smiled at her, but it was not the warm smile she was used to. It was the kind of smile that lets someone know you are thinking things you are not saying yet. As she headed upstairs, I made a mental note to have another conversation with her friend's ex-husband. If I remembered correctly, he discovered his wife's girls' nights were actually auditions for his replacement. Funny how patterns repeat themselves. Even funnier how predictable people become when they think they are being clever. Tomorrow was going to be a very interesting day. Saturday morning arrived with the artificial cheerfulness that guilty people use to overcompensate. She made pancakes, which she had not done in months, and kept asking if I wanted more coffee with the kind of enthusiasm typically reserved for game show hosts. "You seem to be in a good mood," I observed, watching her bustle around the kitchen like she was auditioning for Wife of the Year. "Just happy it is the weekend. We should do something fun today. Maybe go to that farmer's market you like." Interesting. Yesterday I was boring enough that she could not sacrifice one evening to have dinner with family. Today she wanted to spend quality time browsing organic vegetables. The transformation was almost impressive in its transparency. "Actually, I was thinking we should talk about last night." Her smile flickered for just a moment before snapping back into place. "What about it? I told you we just had drinks and caught up." I pulled out my phone and opened the photo I had taken of her car parked outside Vintage and Vine at 11:45. Then I showed her the timestamp. "This is your car, right? The one that was supposed to leave by midnight so you could be home on time." She stared at the photo, her face cycling through confusion, anger, and calculation before settling on indignation. "You followed me? Are you serious right now?" "I did not follow you. I told you I was taking my brother back to his hotel. But since we are talking about following people, let us discuss your friend's dating adventures." "What are you talking about?" I opened her laptop, which I had conveniently left on the kitchen counter, and pulled up the text conversation I had screenshotted the night before. Her face went white as I read her own words back to her. "I love him, but sometimes I wonder if I settled too young. There are so many successful guys at these places who actually know how to have fun." I looked up at her. "Your words, not mine. You went through my messages." The defensive anger was ramping up right on schedule. I went through our shared laptop that I pay for, looking at messages sent on the phone plan that I pay for about nights out that you fund with the credit card that I pay for. I closed the laptop and leaned against the counter, "But sure, let us talk about privacy violations." She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it, probably realizing that playing the victim card was not going to work when I had actual evidence. "Those messages do not mean anything. I was just venting to a friend." "Venting," I repeated. "Is that what we are calling it when you tell someone you are excited to see if some guy shows up to meet you?" Her face flushed red. "It is not what you think." "Really? Then explain to me what I should think when my wife tells me I am her first option, then spends the evening flirting with other men while texting about how she might have settled too young." I was not flirting with anyone. I pulled out my phone again and showed her another photo. This one I had taken through the window of the bar, showing her laughing and touching the arm of the man in the expensive suit. Technology is amazing these days. Phone cameras can capture moments from pretty far away. The fight went out of her all at once. She slumped against the kitchen island, looking like someone who just realized their poker bluff had been called. "It is not what it looks like," she said quietly. "Then tell me what it is, because from where I am sitting, it looks like you are shopping for my replacement, while keeping me around as your backup plan." She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she finally looked up, there were tears in her eyes, but I noticed they were more frustrated tears than guilty ones. "I just wanted to feel attractive again. Desired. Do you know how long it has been since you looked at me the way those men do?" "So, this is my fault," I said, not as a question, but as a statement of fact about where this conversation was heading. "That is not what I am saying. Actually, that is exactly what you are saying. You are telling me that because I do not worship the ground you walk on every single day, you have decided to seek validation from strangers at bars. You do not understand what it is like to feel invisible in your own marriage." I laughed, but there was not any humor in it. "Invisible? You want to talk about invisible? When is the last time you asked me about my day without checking your phone? When is the last time you initiated any conversation that was not about something you wanted or needed? When is the last time you treated me like I was more than just the guy who pays the bills and fixes things around the house?" She did not have an answer for that, which was an answer in itself. "Here is what is going to happen," I continued, my voice calm but absolutely firm. "You're going to stop treating our marriage like it is optional. You're going to stop going to bars to collect phone numbers and ego boosts, and you are going to decide whether you want to be married to me or whether you want to be single and dating again. You cannot just give me ultimatums. I am not giving you an ultimatum. I am telling you that I am done being your first option while you keep other options open. You want to feel desired, then desire the man you married, or set him free to find someone who will." She wiped her eyes, but I could see the anger building behind the tears. "So that is it. After 6 years, you are just going to throw our marriage away over some harmless flirting? I am not throwing anything away. You already did that when you decided I was disposable enough to risk losing over some attention from strangers. I stood up and grabbed my keys from the counter. You have got until I get back from the gym to decide what you want. But understand this, the next conversation we have about your girls' nights is going to be very different. Where are you going? To work out. Apparently, I need to make sure I am still attractive enough to compete with random guys at wine bars. I headed for the door, but turned back one more time. Oh, and honey, the next time you want to lie to me about where you are going or what you are doing, maybe delete the evidence from the devices I pay for first. The look on her face told me she was finally beginning to understand that the man who used to accept her excuses and believe her stories had left the building. What she did not know yet was that he was not coming back. The real conversation was just getting started. I was at the gym for 2 hours, pushing iron and clearing my head. When I walked back into the house, I could smell something cooking. She was in the kitchen wearing the dress I bought her for our anniversary last year, the one she claimed was too fancy for everyday wear. I made your favorite, she announced, gesturing toward what looked like an elaborate dinner spread. That chicken parmesan you always ask for. The transformation was remarkable. Gone was the defensive woman I had left behind, replaced by someone who seemed to have stepped out of a marriage counseling handbook titled, How to Win Back Your Husband in 3 Easy Steps. Interesting timing, I said, grabbing a water bottle from the fridge. I have been thinking about what you said. You are right. I have not been the wife you deserve. I sat down at the kitchen table and watched her bustle around, plating food with the kind of attention to detail she usually reserved for her Instagram photos. And what exactly have you concluded from all this thinking? That I have been selfish, that I have been taking you for granted. She sat across from me, reaching for my hand. I want to fix this, fix us by making dinner, by being honest. She took a deep breath like she was preparing for a performance. Yes, I have been enjoying the attention from other men, but it never went anywhere. It was just fantasy, like watching a movie or reading a romance novel. I pulled my hand away and started cutting into the chicken. Fantasy? That is one way to describe emotional cheating. It was not cheating. I never did anything physical, right? You just told your divorced friend that you were excited to see if some specific guy would show up to meet you. Totally innocent fantasy. Her composure cracked slightly. How do you even know about that? Because you are not as careful as you think you are. And because when someone tells me I am their first option, I tend to investigate what the other options might be. She was quiet for a moment, regrouping when she spoke again. Her voice had taken on that wounded tone that she usually deployed when she needed to flip a script. I cannot believe you are punishing me for being human, for having moments of doubt in a 6-year marriage. Everyone has those thoughts, do they? Because I have been married to you for 6 years, and not once have I told you that you are my first option while secretly shopping around for upgrades. That is because you are a man. It is different for women. We need to feel desired, appreciated. When was the last time you brought me flowers just because? When was the last time you planned a surprise date? And there it was. The pivot I had been expecting. Somehow her emotional affair was now my fault for not being romantic enough. So let me understand this, I said, setting down my fork. You have been lying to me about where you go and who you are with because I do not buy you flowers enough. You are twisting what I am saying. No, I am clarifying what you are saying. You are telling me that your behavior is justified because I failed as a husband. I am saying that relationships require effort from both people. I laughed, but it was not a pleasant sound. Effort? Like the effort I put in working 50 hours a week to pay for this house, your car, your girls' nights, and everything else you consider essential to your happiness? That kind of effort? Money is not everything. You are right. It is not. But it is pretty convenient, how you only remember that when you are trying to justify treating me like garbage. Her mask was slipping now. The apologetic wife act was giving way to something uglier underneath. I never treated you like garbage. I made one comment about you being my first option, and you have turned it into this massive betrayal. One comment, right? Let us ignore the months of secret meetings with men, the lies about where you have been, and the text messages about settling too young. Those were private conversations about our marriage with someone who is actively encouraging you to blow up your life, just like she did hers. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Maybe she has a point. Maybe I did settle too young. Maybe I never got the chance to figure out what I really wanted. There it is, I said quietly. The truth finally comes out. What truth? That this is not about me not buying you flowers or planning surprise dates. This is about you wanting to be single while keeping all the benefits of being married. Her face flushed red. That is not true, is not it? You want the security of having a husband who pays the bills and fixes the sink, but you also want the excitement of flirting with strangers and feeling like you are 19 again. You do not understand what it is like to wonder if you have missed out on life, and you do not understand what it is like to work your ass off every day for someone who considers you expendable. We stared at each other across the kitchen table, the fancy dinner growing cold between us. This was the moment of truth, and we both knew it. "So, what do you want me to do?" she asked, but her tone suggested she was asking out of frustration, not genuine interest in saving our marriage. "I want you to decide. Either you want to be married to me, or you want to be single and see what else is out there. But you do not get both. And if I choose you, what? I never get to go out with friends again. I become some prisoner in my own marriage. If you choose me, you stop lying. You stop seeking validation from other men. You stop treating our marriage like it is negotiable." I stood up and walked toward the doorway, but honestly, based on this conversation, I am not sure that is what you really want. What is that supposed to mean? I turned back to look at her. It means that someone who really wanted to save their marriage would not spend the entire conversation justifying why they needed to shop around for alternatives. You are being impossible. No, I am being clear. Maybe for the first time in this entire relationship. I headed toward the stairs. Let me know when you have made your decision, but understand that I am making mine too. What decision? Whether I want to stay married to someone who thinks I am lucky to be her first choice. I left her standing in the kitchen with her untouched dinner and her wounded pride. Upstairs, I could hear her moving around, probably texting her friend about what an unreasonable monster I was being. But for the first time in months, I felt like I was finally seeing our relationship clearly. And what I saw was not pretty. The question now was whether she would see it too, or whether she would double down on her victim narrative, until there was nothing left to save. Sunday morning came with the sound of her phone buzzing non-stop. I could hear her whispering urgently in the bathroom, probably getting coaching from her divorced friend on how to handle her controlling husband. When she finally emerged, she had that look people get when they have convinced themselves they are the victim in a situation they created. "We need to talk," she announced, like she was calling a board meeting. "I am listening. I have decided that if you cannot handle me having a social life, then maybe we need to take a break." I almost smiled. After everything that had happened, she was trying to make this her decision. A break? Yes. Time apart to figure out what we both really want. Interesting. And where exactly are you planning to take this break? At your friend's place? Or maybe at that wine bar where you have been doing your research? Her confidence wavered slightly. "I have options. I am sure you do. But before you commit to anything permanent, there is something you should know." I walked to the kitchen counter and picked up a manila folder I placed there earlier that morning. Her eyes followed my movement with growing uncertainty. "Friday afternoon, while you were getting ready for your girls' night, I had a very productive conversation with someone." "What kind of conversation?" "The kind you have with a divorce attorney when you realize your marriage might be heading toward its expiration date." The color drained from her face. "You contacted a lawyer?" "I contacted the best divorce attorney in the city. Turns out he has handled several cases involving social media evidence and emotional affairs. Very thorough guy." I opened the folder and pulled out several printed pages. "These are screenshots of all your text messages, Instagram posts, and social media activity from the past 3 months. Amazing what kind of pattern emerges when you lay it all out chronologically." She reached for the papers, but I held them back. "Do not worry, you will get copies. But first, let me walk you through some highlights." I flipped to a page covered in printed text messages. "Here is where you tell your friend that marriage is just a piece of paper. Here is where you discuss strategy for meeting men at bars. And this one is my personal favorite, where you rate the guys you have met on a scale of 1 to 10. Those were private conversations. Private conversations about your marriage, which last I checked, involves me." I turned to another page. "But this gets better. Did you know that your friend's ex-husband kept detailed records of her extracurricular activities? Turns out judges are very interested in patterns of behavior when it comes to asset division." She was staring at me like I had grown a second head. "You cannot be serious. Dead serious. Apparently, when someone demonstrates a pattern of seeking romantic alternatives while married, it can affect how courts view their commitment to the marriage." I closed the folder. Fascinating stuff. "Really, you are trying to scare me. I am trying to educate you. See, while you were playing games and keeping your options open, I was doing something more productive. I was preparing for the possibility that you might choose those options over our marriage." I walked to the kitchen table and sat down, gesturing for her to do the same. She remained standing, probably because sitting would feel too much like accepting a position of weakness. Here is what else I learned. I continued. Our house is in both our names, but I have made every mortgage payment for the past 4 years. Your car is financed through my credit. Your health insurance comes through my job, your gym membership, your phone, your credit cards, all connected to my income. What are you saying? I am saying that while you have been treating me like your backup plan, you might want to consider what your life looks like without me as your primary financial plan. She finally sat down, her face pale. You are threatening me. I am not threatening anyone. I am presenting facts. You want to take a break? Fine, but breaks work both ways. That means no more joint checking account, no more credit cards that I pay off, no more insurance coverage, no more house that I maintain and mortgage that I service. You cannot just cut me off financially. Actually, I can. We do not have kids. We do not have any joint debts beyond the mortgage. And according to my lawyer, separating finances during a trial separation is not only legal, it is recommended. I pulled out another set of papers. I have already opened a new checking account. Starting tomorrow, my paycheck goes there. I've also contacted our insurance company about removing you from my policy effective next month. This is insane. You are blowing up our entire life over some text messages. No, you blew up our life when you decided I was not enough for you. I am just responding appropriately to your decision. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at the papers spread across the table. When she looked up, there was something different in her eyes. Not anger or defiance, but calculation. What if I said I was sorry? What if I promised to stop going out with the girls? Then I would say you are missing the point entirely. What point? The point is that you have shown me who you really are. Someone who lies, who seeks validation from strangers, who treats her marriage like it is optional. Promising to behave better does not change the fundamental problem, which is what? That you do not respect me. You do not value what we built together. And when things got a little routine, instead of working to improve our relationship, you started shopping for my replacement. She was crying now, but they were not the manipulative tears from yesterday. These looked like genuine panic. I never meant for any of this to happen. Maybe not, but it did happen. And now we both have to live with the consequences of your choices. I stood up and gathered the papers. You said you wanted a break to figure out what you really want. Consider this your opportunity. You can have all the freedom you have been craving. Date whoever you want, flirt with whoever you want, live whatever life you think you are missing out on, but without any of the benefits of being married to you. Exactly. Welcome to being single again. I hope it is everything you dreamed it would be. I headed toward the stairs, but her voice stopped me. What if I do not want a break? What if I want to work on us? I turned back to look at her. Then you will need to prove it. Not with words, or promises, or fancy dinners. With actions, real, sustained, verifiable changes in behavior. Like what? Like cutting contact with the friend who has been encouraging you to blow up your marriage. Like complete transparency about where you go and who you are with. Like marriage counseling with someone who does not buy into the idea that emotional affairs are just harmless fantasies. And if I do all that, then maybe we can discuss whether there is anything left to save. But understand this, I am not negotiating from a position of desperation anymore. You want to be married to me, then be married to me. All in, no backup plans, no exit strategies. And if I cannot do that, then you will get to find out what life looks like when you are no longer anyone's first option. I left her sitting at the kitchen table with the evidence of her choices spread out in front of her for the first time. In months, I felt like I was back in control of my own life. The ball was in her court now. The question was whether she had the courage to play it, or whether she would finally admit that the game was already over. 6 months later, I can say that so far, she has kept her word. The marriage we are building is not the same one we had before. It is more honest, more direct, and definitely more fragile, but it is also more real. She learned that being someone's first option is not a privilege you get to take for granted. And I learned that sometimes you have to be willing to lose everything to save what actually matters. The funny thing about becoming someone's last option is that it forces them to realize you might have been their best option all along. Some people figure that out in time, others do not. I'm glad she figured it out, but I'm even more glad I figured out that I deserved better than being anyone's backup plan. These days I am nobody's first option. I am their only option, and that makes all the difference. Our story has come to an end. If you have made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I have selected 2 other videos for you that I am sure you will enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I will be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.